What happens when you purify your body, your mind, your spirit? Something miraculous. The body begins to heal itself. Welcome to the Medicine Girl podcast, where each week we explore new ways to heal your body from the root, igniting your inner healer. You are the medicine. And now, here's your host, Robin Stebbins.
Welcome to the Medicine Girl podcast. Amy Attenborough, my one and only person I've had on now 3 times. Highly recommend going back and watching the other 2. Amy is one of those people on this planet that just gets it, in my opinion. Like, you understand human nature, animal nature, and nature's nature, because we are all one. And so I am going to just preface this with, I'm doing a retreat in July 2025 with Amy in the magic of the bush in South Africa, which I've been to now twice. Once with one of Amy's tours, and it is life-changing. So Amy, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself to our new audience. I have a lot more viewers. And just a little something about what you stand for. And then we're going to get into what we were just talking about, technology.
Sure. So my name is Amy Attenborough. I'm a South African, and I'm a guide, a safari guide, and I lead experiences in the African bush. My company is called Wild Again, and basically we lead transformative experiences in the wilderness. So my big driver in the world, and this is kind of ties into the technology thing, is like, I see that we live in the most connected world we've ever lived in, and yet people feel more disconnected than ever before. And the results are not difficult to see. We're seeing massive amounts of depression, feelings of hopelessness, anxiety, just like loneliness. And really the way that we heal that is by healing the human nature divide. We have separated ourselves from nature, and we are suffering the results of it. So what we do is, we kind of craft these experiences in epic wilderness locations, and we literally just let nature, we tee up nature and we just let it do the work. And it's amazing to see the transformations in people.
Yeah, that's what I had. And that's why I based my whole mission for my life on, because that's how I grew up in the wilds of Nevada, in a very dysfunctional, stressful household, but yet most of my time was spent outside in raw nature, exploring, wandering around, and listening to the plants speak to me, listening to the mountains tell me bedtime stories at night before they put me to bed. All of these, they said these wonderful, loving, compassionate, unconditional love things to me. So that's more of my parenting. So instead of being as dysfunctional, I mean, not that I didn't have my decades of dysfunction, but I had that underlying healing mechanism that was able to come forth. And so that's why I'm so passionate about doing these retreats, especially with you, because of everyone I've met on the planet, I can count on one hand now those that I feel that understand that sound of nature, that not getting into our egos and saying, I will show you the way, to be able to take someone here with the modalities that you and I know, like walking barefoot and grounding and recharging, connecting, heart syncing with the animals, can then reignite that person's original wild. That's why I'm so excited about 100%. What you stand for. What you created.
Yeah, no, Rob's, just to add to what you've said, what you said about being parented by nature, I thought was so beautiful. It's like, we call it Mother Earth for a reason. And I really, what I find so fascinating about witnessing people in these spaces is how people like soften, they fall into the natural rhythms of the place that they are. Like, you can almost feel and see civilization and the pressures and this like machine kind of fall off people in actually really the softest, most beautiful way. And people become more playful, their skin brightens, they smile more, they chat and share with each other. And I just find it comes from such simple things, from being around a fire in the evening and, you know, waking up with the dawn chorus and moving your body in a natural way. So moving at the pace of nature. And that's something that's important about the retreat that we're leading, is we're going to be spending a lot of time on foot, particularly in Pafuri, which is in the, I'm just going to kind of launch into where these places are.
Yeah.
But in the northernmost reaches of Kruger, so up it borders with Mozambique and Zimbabwe, and it's true, pure wilderness. It's never been anything but wilderness. It's expanding across 3 countries. It's about 6 million acres of wilderness, and these animals are just moving. What separates the country is actually just a river, the Limpopo River. And what's amazing about this place is there's evidence of human history all the way back to 1.5 million years ago. Like the early Homo sapiens were walking around there. There's millions of examples of stone tools that we find in the area. And it goes through the Iron Age. There's even like a very evolved civilization that was there called Tulamela that were smelting gold, and they were trading with the Arabs. They were trading ivory and Chinese porcelain. And it's this incredible, and that was like 1,500 years ago, all the way to a more recent group that lived there. And you see this in stone tools, in like the remains of stone walls. And it's a reminder that we have always belonged there. And that is our home. So often I hear when people come on safari, especially when they're walking, is this feeling of like, should we be here? Isn't this dangerous? Like, aren't we in the animal space? And it's like, no, like actually until humans are on foot in a wilderness area, that area is not actually complete. Like, we evolved with zebras and elephants. Like, these animals know exactly what we are, and we form part of that system. And by moving on foot, we no longer are observers of nature, but we actually are participants. And we feel connected, and we notice the small things because we're moving more slowly, and it wakes up our senses because we feel vulnerable. You know, like, yes, there's a danger to it, but people get less nervous over the time that they're there because they realize nothing's out there to get them. And as you actually start to use your senses and to actually take note of potentially a threat, all of the like imaginary threats that we're so used to living with that come in your email inbox and then into your bedroom in the middle of the night, like those fall away, and your life simplifies, and it just feels so clear.
100%. And so I can do 2 real life examples. And I like this because it's more, I can create an allegory out of my 2 experiences. So the first one was I was walking with shoes on with a ex-boyfriend, and we're walking up a canyon in the middle of Nevada next to Pyramid Lake. And this is the only canyon that has any water. So instantly I did not feel that we should be walking there. Intuitively, as we're walking up, we see a hollowed out cow that something had just recently eaten. It hadn't even started to smell yet. As we continue up, against my better judgment and voicing that to my friend, I heard a scream behind me. And so I didn't have time to react. My body just stopped and moved backwards towards the scream. What the scream was there was a huge rattlesnake in front of us that had made that sound. This was offline completely. My body reacted. Fast forward to a week and a half ago, I'm in Sonoma on a hike, and I like to hike barefoot now. So I'd taken off my shoes, and for whatever reason, my body stopped, completely halted, and I look in front of me, and there's a rattlesnake right in front of the trail, maybe 6 to 8 inches before I was going to step on it. It was not concerned with me in the slightest. Yeah. This was the understanding that we are nature
Mm-hmm.
when we are connected. So the more in our intuition that we are, so free of substance. And now I am, at the end of this month, I'll be free of all substance. So alcohol, nicotine, caffeine, marijuana, any kind of prescriptions, over-the-counter, supplements, I'm completely without. And what I've noticed, not only am I happier, more content, more deep in my peace, but my intuition is off the charts.
Yeah.
And that is what I think, Ames, we're capable of when we're free from substance, including fluoride and chlorine and all the toxins they put in the tap water. But that's just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
I often wonder, when we look back 1,000 years, what were their superpowers? What were they capable of in that being one with nature?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And with like such a deep relationship and respect and understanding of plants, like, that's one thing that we kind of delve into on Safari, is like everything has its use. And I don't mean that in the sense like it's only has worth because of its use to humans, but like it's incredible what that environment can provide for us. And it's like, there's not many that have a deep understanding of that left. Thankfully, there are still some, and I'm like feeling like I could go in so many directions here with what you said, but it's so true about like intuition and instinct, and how this is something that is available to every single person, and it's become quite numbed and dulled from the lives we live, and from, as you say, from the substances that are kind of part of our lives, and to get free of those and to be back in that environment, your instincts start to awaken again. And it's something that we kind of play with a lot out there, is bringing this value back into people's lives, because the world that we're living in now is very much focused around like cognitive capabilities, and a lot less around like what we would call like the feminine, the felt experience, the information that's being received in your body that's not often even sort of verbally available. And there are countless experiences I've had in the bush where you like on a game path and there's no sign of anything that's dangerous, but there's just something that like just stops you, and you're just like, not here. And then like, a second later, a buffalo pops up and like charges off, and it's like, you are so much bigger in terms of your radar for information than we realize. And out there, because there's not this overwhelm of like hyperstimulation, and like technology and messages coming at you and traffic and lots of people, your nervous system can relax, and you can actually start to feel into the space around you and start to hone that capacity.
Yeah, I think the perception I hear from most people is that you're hyper vigilant, you're stressed out, and that's I think one of the programs, because we've been programmed from birth to be afraid. And the sky is always falling, and we're always having to be on the lookout for the next disaster that's going to kill us or take all our money or take our family away. But when you're in that space, what I noticed instantly when I set foot the first time in 2016, when I was an absolute stressed out mess, is that this calm presence took over me almost instantly. And I was taking pictures. I had brought my camera. I was taking pictures of the people that we went to for, in that first group. And from the beginning, there was a look of just contentment. But as we progressed, you started to see the soul come through on everyone, almost everyone. But it was just, everyone looked so beautiful.
Yeah.
The stress and the facades were all washed away by this oneness. And I wanted to say too, when we're in the verbal and we're speaking about it, we're explaining, okay, this is why I'm feeling this way, let's go this direction. you cut yourself off from the truth, because the verbal has been usurped also, not for our benefit, for control and dumbing us down and keeping us separate from that intuition, which is what makes us so powerful. But then just being able to trust that body intelligence and combine them all into one.
100%. And kind of honing that, like what is truth in the body. Like sometimes the body is also presenting data that's like not necessarily the truth. But in a space like that, where you're dealing with an environment that is inherently kind and supportive and doesn't have an ego, like it's the ultimate place to kind of hone it and test it out. And it's, you mentioned coming to Africa for your first time and that like instant feeling. I see it time and time and time again. When people get off the airplane and they put their feet on African soil, there's like this, some people just cry off the bat because there's this feeling of instant homecoming. And, talking again about where Homo sapiens emerged, everyone, if you trail it back, every lineage on the planet emerged from Africa. And I really believe that like at a deep cellular level, and like there's a remembering of this place as home and that you belong here. And like it becomes, once people experience it, they just like can't get enough. I see it as the medicine. Like they keep coming back for the medicine, and then they take it home and they spread it in the world and they integrate it into their lives. But like it's the place to remind you, and it's the place to reset you.
I think that's so important to say, medicine. And that's what my mission is to educate people on the difference between medication and medicine. So medication it's a toxin that you ingest and your body builds a tolerance to. And it's building a tolerance because you don't have the same effects. You need more and more of that medication to get the same effects that, let's say, is lower blood pressure or lower cholesterol. And it's building up toxins because you're getting these toxic effects. You're getting sicker, your kidneys function might be getting worse, whatever you're feeling in your body, you're feeling worse. Whereas medicine, you take it for a finite period of time, and you need less and less of it until your body has then taken over. So, and most of the medicine is within us. Yeah. I mean, that's why I say my tagline is, you are the medicine.
Yeah.
The body heals itself. So less and less we enter a state of fear, so that we're now interfering with the body's natural mechanisms and interfering with the body's own medicine. Then we create more problems than we signed up for. Number one rule, don't interfere with nature. We've seen that time and time again with disastrous results, yet we continue to do it.
Yeah. 100%. And I think it comes back to what we started with around like we are nature. So where we are healthy and wholesome is in a natural environment. The moment we take ourselves out of that place and we start taking in all kinds of toxins off of whatever it is, social media, poor quality water, spaces that put us in a lot of mind, whatever it is, then we get to a point where we need that reset. And what's beautiful is that you start to see people kind of valuing their relationship with nature so much more, like really making that a priority in their lives, moving away from big cities, growing their own vegetables, making these small changes back home that are kind of everything. And Rob's, just a few examples, the things that I've seen on trail with people, 4 nights, I'm talking about 4 nights. And like, I never really did this with the intention of this experience being like literally medicine for the body, but it just inherently, I knew it was the right experience to give people. But the things I've seen happen to people's bodies. So a friend of mine, she lost her menstrual cycle for 2.5 years. she had been doing quite a lot. This happened as a result of stress, over-exercise, restrictive eating. And she'd be doing a lot of work on healing those parts of her life. But she came on this 4-night retreat, and she phoned me the day after she left in tears. Her menstrual cycle had returned. People that have been on sleeping aids for years, they come on trail and they come through to me and they're like, you can just see this like brightness and this kind of like curiosity and almost like shock. Like, I didn't use my sleeping aid last night and I slept through the night. Like, I feel amazing. And like kind of this like, how could it be that easy? And it's like, you're just putting yourself in the right place, and you're practicing presence, and you're just, allowing yourself to get back to equilibrium.
That's it. And there's that, all these frequencies that we're not aware of, that when you're in a natural environment, I call it raw nature, undisturbed by man for thousands of years, there's a healing frequency that reharmonizes your body. So each and every system of the body, I don't believe we're made up of cells anymore. I think that's more programming. And mitochondria, this factory pumping out ATP, these little boxes of ATP, I don't think that's how it works. I don't know how it works. Dr. Tom Cowan has some, pretty innovative suggestions, but each system harmonizes in different frequencies. And we can't just say, okay, my liver is out of frequency or my heart is, and just harmonize that one back into it, because then that's that reductionist viewpoint. And we are the whole being. And I believe we're the whole being in that frequency with nature. So the other thing that this land does for you is it will reharmonize all of those energy centers, so that even when you go back home, you're still in that harmonized frequency. And that's what I also, for this retreat, I do the 3-session integration so that you keep that healing frequency. And then I had another question for you, just an idea, was to have everyone plant seeds somewhere, that is, and only you would know, that is in, a harmony, but they plant those seeds so that they have a piece of them, they can spit on the seeds or create some connection to the seeds so that they still have that healing frequency growing in the motherland.
That's a beautiful idea. Sure, I've never considered that, but like a way to kind of tether themselves back there. 100%. It's amazing though. It like, yes, and there's almost not even a need.
Right.
Like
You're already there.
Exactly. It wakes up something in everyone that like doesn't go dormant. It's like this aliveness that's now yours. It's like, you can't unsee what you've seen. And that's a big piece around the places that we've chosen to go, is to each of those places has a very unique frequency, a very powerful frequency. And we're going to start in Pafuri, mostly on foot, because that really is the place that like slows everyone down, strips off the layers in a really gentle way, and then like creates this sense of awe. I mean, there are baobabs there, like I'm talking thousands and thousands of baobabs that are like 3,000 years old. We walk in a fever tree forest, which a fever tree is like, it's like almost like this yellow green tree. It photosynthesizes through the bark, not just through the leaves. There's a forest of it that if you turn in a 360, like all you can see is fever trees. Lana Gorge, we walk in the river through a place called Lana Gorge that has, it's exposing rock that's 250 million years old. That's pre-Jurassic. So it's very, very ancient, and it kind of roots people. And then we'll go from there to Ngala, which is further south. All of these places are kind of part of the Greater Kruger National Park. And Ngala it's kind of like this place where we're going to spend some time tracking. And Robs, I know you've had the experience of tracking. where we walk with these incredible trackers. So these men, it's an ancient art form. It's essentially actually what made us such a successful species. There's a theory that it's the original science, because there's a system to tracking. It's like you have a hypothesis. I think the animal went here because of, and then you can actually actively test out that hypothesis. And then whatever data you get feeds into your body of knowledge, and you share that with your tribe, which is essentially, that's the baseline of all maths and science. And I think it's the reason why everybody like falls in love with tracking when they start doing it, because it's actually like you're wired to do it. So we'll practice that and kind of like draw out the metaphor of tracking and how we do it in our lives. But in an area that's got like these enormous lion prides, 23 lions in a pride. The white lion gene is in that area. Lots of hyena, lots of wild dogs, and just a very special place. And then we go south to into the Sabi Sands, which is like the home of the leopard, the mysterious creature, and really, really good game viewing there. And then we can play with the idea of sort of like, what is it that animals are teaching us in their way of being? Because each of them draws something different out in us. So yeah, I'm really excited about the places that we're going to, and that's a big thing. Like, wilderness is not just about the content. A lot of people think that they're coming for the animals. Yes, of course, massive part of it. But really it's for this wilderness. That's what does the job.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's also the things that I like to separate now from myself is just these pieces of paper that we have controlled society with. Studies indicate, peer-reviewed article from the New England Journal of Medicine shows that. I think it's all nonsense, because anytime we have done a study, I have a million inputs in my life on a daily basis, as do you, and they're all different. So to try and, again, reduce that to one, we don't know. So this is another benefit of this motherland. When we're smelling those smells, it activates something in me. It activates something that is indescribable. I follow my nose with those things, and then I can follow my heart. The heart has its own neurons. It's not like these neurons connect to the brain and then we can understand. It's got its own neural connections that can speak through us, that we can feel through, that can guide us. Same with our gut and all the things that we don't know about. And that's what, even the last safari I went on with my son, West, I had the tracker stop because I told him I had to go to the bathroom. I didn't. The soil in front of me was irresistible. I had to eat it. I had to take a little spoonful and eat it. And whatever was in that soil remineralized my body. I felt like I'd been on, superpower for the next few weeks. But that is when you're in your intuition, it just flows like that. And it's not like I'm going to take everyone there and make them eat dirt. But it's to awaken that part of you, that inner part of you that just is that knowing, and to trust that. And then the brain is good at taking you from point A to point B, but let's not have that be the director at the ship.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. I mean, as you say, like, useful to have a study, but the real like shifts and learnings happen in experience. And like you can only know by having done it. And it's interesting what you say about like, eating a spoon of dirt. Like there's in the Shangaan culture here, often the woman will get a craving. They'll eat like termite mud, which they believe is very good for like settling the stomach, or they feel is good for settling the stomach. And I mean, we see it with animals all the time. Like at the end of winter, when they're very malnourished, they'll chew on bones because they're actually getting calcium and minerals from those bones at a time when they're not really getting it in the vegetation around them. So you come back into more of an animalistic way. And I think sometimes that gets misunderstood and people are like scared of that. Like like wild means crazy or bad, or like you've lost control. And it's not that at all. It's more, you've just slipped into a more natural way of being where you just allow what feels right. And sometimes allowing what feels right means getting very quiet, or, you know, like resting, or it doesn't mean going crazy. It might, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. And I think that's an important thing, like distinction to make. You know, you watch these animals, they've got incredibly good boundaries. They are, they're just like the most amazing teachers.
I feel that so intently, and noticing from my 2 trips so far to South Africa, each one, you don't go back to baseline. No. It just keeps reblooming more and more, you know, authentic pieces of you, so that the whole then can come forth. And then no matter what, you are living your best life, but not the life that they have decided is, you know, the bling and the cars and the houses, but it's what authentically is satisfying to your soul. Because I think that's what we all are after. We've been programmed to think it's things external, or fame, fortune, notoriety, approval, appreciation, but it's just more, your soul has things that necessarily satisfy and don't satisfy it. And it doesn't create this hungry ghost where it's like, oh, now my soul just keeps needing to be satisfied. It's just in these moments, these nice little blooms of soul meeting your body, opening up, feeling safe. And then each time, I think it just compounds on the last time. And so for whatever it is, like all of the people that we went to on that first safari with, you know, I just see them blooming. They're opening more and more to their true selves. And that healing takes place. All, you know, and it's not the things that we think we need to be healed. It's what your this infinite design is understanding on levels that you don't need to figure out. It just happens.
100%. I think sometimes it even gives, you know, it gives people exactly what they need in their process. So sometimes that even looks like showing people that there's nothing to be healed. Like they are perfectly good, whole, exactly as they are. Like there's nothing to be done. But you know, our culture wouldn't have you believe that, because that's not how you keep people buying things. Yeah. And it's, you know, it's so, I feel like it's so, our minds will make this into something complicated, but so often when we get out there and into nature, it becomes very uncomplicated. It actually becomes very simple. And it's really a matter of just feeling connected to each other, to something bigger than yourself, to like having your mind blown by like the night skies that are just like, oh my God, I'm so tiny. You know, it's things like that just kind of put everything in its right place. Yeah. And then what you want to do with it afterwards, you can do with it.
Yeah. Well, I like that you said, you know, sometimes we're afraid of just becoming that person that we see, you know, that's gone wild. And I see it as, my analogy has always been, there's just these horses that are in a pen, and they see the wild Mustangs running by that, you know, have to forage for their own food and find their own water. And instead of wanting to run out there with the wild Mustangs, they want to break them and put them into the pen. But when you're out there running wild, like, it is one of the best feelings that you can have. And then your life starts to take that form effortlessly. You don't have to design it. It just sort of starts to unfold in front of you. And then I think the benefits of that are just this, you know, longevity is just a word tossed around, but what we're really after is this, you know, lit up ability to live longer, but deepen. Not have somebody take care of us in a bed and change our diapers for the last 5 years, but to actually have, wisdom to be able to impart to the younger generation, and to have just as much power and magnitude and excitement in all of it till your last breath. And I think that's another piece of what this can do, because then you start to notice, here's my soul's guidance. Now I can follow that instead of the rat race that will lead me to what I just described.
Robs, that's the thing, is I feel like there's a conversation at the moment around like living long, but really, it's about living well, and moving into our old age, and kind of staying connected to what's important. So exactly, it's not just about keeping alive, it's about vitality, and this is what's critical.
Well, it's critical not just for going into our golden age, but I think it's critical for what's happening right now on this planet. These forces that be are not going away, and I think it's easy to think, in terms of a savior complex. Somebody's going to come and rescue us, or, forget it. It's too late anyway. I'll just hook myself up and wait for the bitter end. But when we are lit up in our power and our intuition, I think we're unstoppable. I think they've spent so much time and energy keeping us from that for a good reason, because we are so powerful when we have that online. And that is what South Africa and the bush and being in the wild and being on on the soil barefoot, feeling that oneness again, and just the possibilities open in front of you. You're not thinking, point A to point B, and then how am I going to monetize this, and selfies, and it's just it unfolds in the magic of the way nature unfolds.
100%. I think that there's also like as you spend more time out there, there doesn't become this desire to fight the system, or to fight what other people are doing, or it's like you actually just lose interest in what they're doing, and you're like, well, not there, it's here. And what I find so interesting about being in those spaces, particularly in places where we have no cell phone connectivity, like it's this magic opens up where there's no external influences. People are just so present. They're with their community. And it feels like, honestly, like the rest of the world might have disappeared and you wouldn't even know it. And the freedom in that is incredible. Like there's just such presence. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to be. You just want to be there. And I think it's like we've come from this culture of like, we must defend things, we must fight things. But in fact, I think so much more goodness comes from just investing your energy into what you care about, what you love. Like for us, it's less about like protecting wild areas and more about expanding wild areas. So dropping fences, linking up parks, getting cooperative around policies, creating these transnational parks, because the thing that we see time and time again is that if you give nature space, it knows how to heal itself. It knows how to regenerate. It knows how to come back, and it knows how to create balance. When we cramp these animals, and there is parts of this in Africa where there's like fenced wilderness areas, but it requires a lot of human management, and then it requires us to play God a bit because we don't understand the intricacies of the system, and it creates imbalance, and then we have to manipulate it. But really what we're doing, and like where the energy is getting put, where I see the most value, is expansion. You just give nature space and you protect it the best that you can, and you create value for the people that live around it. You invite them to be a part of the economy of wildlife. And the possibility is endless.
And that is part of what Wild Again does, and beyond. Mm-hmm. You are part of that. And I really love that, because I've always felt that when we interfere with the program and we're like, oh, we're going to save it by sectioning it off or doing this or fixing it, we create more harm than good, with our understanding. Because I really like what you said. We don't understand how nature works. We don't understand the intricacies. We cannot recreate anything. And when we do, it doesn't work. It works initially, or it looks like a bloom, like, oh, look how wonderful this is. And then it ends in disaster. And so it's like, well, we'll just keep doing the same thing, but this time we're going to do it harder.
Yeah.
And then again, so we're on that cycle instead of just let it expand on its own.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the big thing. It's like, we kind of the aim is to get involved with it, like experience it, listen, like notice, play, have fun, like just enjoy, get into its rhythm. And it does start to like gift you with its secrets and its ways and its relationships. But we can just never pretend to even... We could never fully understand it, but that's the beauty. I mean, people say to me all the time, like, don't you get bored? Like, aren't you tired of doing this now? And I'm like, are you crazy? Like, it literally is the opposite. Like, it gets more interesting for me every day. So yeah, there's a lot for us to discover.
Yeah, and that's the same with me, with how the body heals, and I have spent 35 years in healthcare, and we will never know, even scratching the surface, we don't know. And again, I think that's the beauty of it. There's this mystery we will never solve. So instead of being, this hungry ghost or a junkyard dog trying to find that bone, we're simply just, again, we're part of it, just in a state of wonder, watching this magnificent beings unfold before us. And we can talk about it and have discussions and ideas, but again, it's just more felt. It's a felt experience that then benefits you, I think, for the rest of your life. And then you can come back anytime for resets. So I know we're almost out of time. What are some things that you have seen in participants afterwards, just I love that story of her period returning, that is, you can't fake that. You can't force it. It will return when you're in that harmonious state again.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, there's other examples, it went the other way. A guest of mine she had gone through like she had lost her life partner and was in this like deep grief state. And she had actually gone into menopause and been in menopause for many years. And on retreat, she processed a huge amount of this grief. And afterwards, she bled it went on for like 2 weeks, which, she feeling into it was a big release of what she'd been holding on to. And then she's gone back to, being in menopause. And it's bringing back exactly what you were just saying about the body. And it's what I appreciate so much about your approach and your perspective is, it's like the more we can go towards nature and the less we can try to like fix, the more everything just comes into harmony. And I see it kind of on a psychological level with guests too, and just people will often send me messages and just be like, oh, I'm going through the photos again, or like I saw this bird, or like it awakens this curiosity. It creates this community where people have had this wonderful shared experience, and there's like a deep understanding of each other. That kind of trust can only be built in process. It's like you've been in this experience together where you've kind of like seen each other, tested things out, like bumped up against things, and it creates this, it's going back to tribe. I mean, it's what we all need.
It is.
Yeah. So the gifts are kind of, they're endless.
Well, I'm going to just put an emphasis on the tribal aspect, because when you have, this small group of 10 or 12 people, you get to witness each other. And I think we crave so deeply people seeing us, but yet we're so terrified of letting anyone see us. So we're just in this constant loop of see me. And I think it gets, misguided, and well, maybe I'll just post selfies or just, post this, but we need that connection in person, by firelight. It's even better, or the campfire, and the eyes seeing you, like you see these people witnessing you with no judgment on your face as you're telling your story. You're not, it doesn't have to be your victim story. It's just could be what you witnessed today, but you see people witness you. It's like this magic of creation is created within you from them. And then you create, these bonds. And so as you leave for the rest of your lives, like you are still connected, and you have these people that have your back. You actually have a tribe.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We are not meant to live in isolation in our separate homes, in cities with walls and cars and distractions. For hundreds of thousands of years, we've sat around fires, witnessing each other and hearing each other's stories, from like what happened on the hunting expedition to, like what people saw when they were out foraging, or, what happened with the children. We are meant to witness each other. And I do think that there's a deep hunger for that kind of gets fulfilled, nourished, very naturally, there's no force.
It's naturally. And then what I have noticed too is the chip on your shoulder is gone when you get back home, and you're not repelling people anymore. You can create that, and you can create the same experience that you have in the bush in your home environment. It seems impossible before you go, and whatever you're mired in right now, but my goodness, like I look at my little house in the middle of the Bay Area, and it's a wilderness.
Yeah,
it is beautiful, and it just keeps evolving on its own. And I attempt to go at the pace of nature now, let it unfold on its own. And man, that has saved me a lot of time and wasted materials also.
Oh, and energy, for sure.
Well, thank you so much again, Amy Attenborough. I so appreciate your time. I so appreciate what you're doing on this planet. And I want to emphasize one more thing that you said, I think is so important, is that we're not interfering with how things are going. We're moving at the pace of nature. We're letting it unfold in its natural way, whether we agree with it or not. It's just, let's witness that also. And then we can then witness that in ourselves without the judgment.
Only such peace in that. You can just slip into the system. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you, Miss Amy Attenborough. And if anyone wants to learn more about your adventure, I'm going to have all the links to Samazuli Retreats, which is what we'll be doing July 2025. If that resonates with you, click the links below. We can do a free call, and I'll tell you all about it. And then I highly recommend going to Amy's website. It's fun just to, even if it's just to watch all the things that you're doing. It's amazing. Wild again.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so excited to have you back on South African soil, and I'm really excited to see what group gathers. And yeah, thank you for the chat.